does money buy happiness? That is the stupidest question that I've ever heard.
What is the Invention Secrecy Act of 1951?
I like to think that I have a rational mind.
So nicotine has got some utility to it.
Can't lock down a former president and the current president debating the
absolute, total, complete annihilation last night.
Outrageous. It is a total violation of any of the norms and the spirits around presidential debates.
Yeah, that's right. Marxist side is to undermine the family.
Check it. On this episode of Modern Wisdom, we got George Mack in the mix. He's a writer, marketer, and entrepreneur dropping straight knowledge. George is known for hitting you with the highest insights per minute on Twitter. In this episode, we dive into some of his top ideas on human nature, tribalism, happiness, and politics. We break down the busy trap and how to dodge it, peep the biggest differences between the US and the UK, and get into why money might not buy happiness. George also shares why strategic ignorance is key. His favorite Charlie Munger story is packed with gems, so don't miss it. For the full context of this episode, click the link in the description below.
We've been talking a lot about differences between the UK and the USA. What have you come to believe?
My biggest takeaway from being in America as a Brit, it's like finding out my dad had a kid with another woman that I never met. And we meet for the first time. And I'm like, you're kind of me, but you're not me. It's like he spent a bit more money on you. He made you believe in yourself. Your mom was clearly much nicer or kinder, and you go, oh, Americans, like, we're kind of the same. But
it's like Brits with self-belief.
Brits with self-belief is what Americans are.
The UK has the 6th largest economy in the world, but people are confused. The UK doesn't have the 6th largest economy in the world. London has the 6th largest economy in the world. It just has a really poor country attached to a very rich city.
Top 10 universities in the world, the UK has 3 and the US has 3. Yet the US output 5 times the number of entrepreneurs that those UK universities do. So in theory, these people are as intelligent as one another. Across that, I think it's Oxford, Cambridge, and another university.
King's, maybe.
What's interesting when you go across global university rankings and outputs of entrepreneurs in the study, the UK university, which was Oxford, so that's the number 1 for entrepreneurial output, was 50th across the whole world. Despite the fact we rank so high in education, yet actually transforming that into entrepreneurship doesn't seem to happen. And I wonder again whether that's the self-belief thing. Everybody's probably heard the question, does money buy happiness? And then there'll be a big debate, but the correct way to actually answer that question is to say, that is the stupidest question that I've ever heard. You used 95% of your salary to get this crazy penthouse in New York to show off to everybody, and you realize in the first night that your next door neighbor's P. Diddy. Wild, loud orgies all night, and it's just
beating his wife in the corridor outside.
Yeah, a nightmare to live next to, right? In that case, did money buy happiness? Actually, money might have bought misery. Let's say you then go on Amazon Prime and get those earplugs, silicone ones that mold to your ear, that block out all noise, and it costs you $10. Well, in that case, a little bit of money bought a lot of happiness. So the problem with this phrase, does money buy happiness, is it implies all money is created equal and all happiness is created equal. And you can see, if you ask the question, so when people ask you that question, the best question to reply with is, does money buy good investments? Questions trying to get to, or what the real answer to the question should be, is that strategic money buys happiness and unstrategic money can buy misery, or strategic money can buy happiness and unstrategic money can buy misery. The reason why this question exists is because within itself, it's a presupposition. It presupposes that all money is created equal, and it presupposes that all happiness is created equal, when it's not. It's a completely individualistic thing, like an investment.
Check it out. On the PBD podcast, Dr. Stephen Greer is back for round 2 with Patrick Bet-David, and it's straight up wild. They dive deep into government conspiracies, whistleblowers, aliens, secret patents, teleportation, Nikola Tesla, and more. You don't want to miss this mind-blowing convo. For the full context of this episode, click the link in the description below.
What is the Invention Secrecy Act of 1951? Can you tell the audience what is the Invention Secrecy Act of 1951, who was behind it, and why?
Well, it actually became an offshoot of the projects from the 40s dealing with energy and technology and propulsion systems that, if they were disclosed, would be the immediate replacement of oil, gas, coal, surface transportation, public utilities. Well, in today's dollars, you're talking probably over $1,000 trillion. Between 1945 and 1954 was the heyday of electromagnetic engineering dealing with energy and propulsion. And it was from 2 sources. Research that had been done in the late 1800s and early 20th century, and even things that people call anti-gravity, not the correct scientific term, but let's just go with that. It's really gravity control. Those experiments started in the late 20s with T. Townsend Brown and the Kolosky-Frost experiment in Germany, where very high voltage systems would cause objects to lift and basically have mass cancellation and look like they're defying gravity. So they realized that there were too many people stumbling across this, and they created this act to give the government the power that even if you don't apply for a patent, if they learn you have something that they want to seize, all they have to do is issue a national security order on it, and they take it. And this is not a conspiracy theory and all that. It's just a fact. You can look up people can look this up. And I've worked over the years with many, many people who've had that happen to them, geniuses that have had their work confiscated. And it would be an enormous benefit to humanity. But the super elite, global elite, don't want that out. They didn't want it out in the 50s, and they don't want it out now. So that is the core of the secrecy behind what people call.
If these 6,000 patents were to be released, and right now, if I'm not mistaken, the punishment is they give you 75% of what they think the patent is worth. I believe that's what they say. And then if you sell it off to somebody else, and they find out, you're going to jail for the rest of your life.
Right.
If you even talk about it, you're going to jail for the rest of your life.
Right.
And if you go on Invention Secrecy Act of 1951, the way they categorize on what goes in there, right there, if you can read it, folks, the Invention Secrecy Act allows the U.S. government to classify ideas and patents under secrecy orders, which definitely restrict public knowledge of them. And at the top, if you read it, the United States federal law designed to prevent disclosure of new investigations, the opinion and technologies that in the opinion of selected federal agencies, so it's purely opinion-based, of selected federal agencies present an alleged threat, it's alleged threat, to the economic stability and national security of the United States.
The other thing is that when I go into a SCIF, a secure compartment information facility where top secret information is exchanged, one of the first things I do, whether it's with the members of Congress or some military people, tell them, see this video that the Pentagon has confirmed is real of this UFO flying off the coast of California? And I said, just look at that. Forget all the esoteric and alien cachet. That is an alternative energy and propulsion device, period. This is why most of our Air Force and other pilots, when they encounter these, they immediately assume all of them are alien or extraterrestrial, when in reality, I'd say 70, 80% of them are ours. Highly classified, illegally run covert programs without the oversight of the Congress and the president. That secrecy has become so embedded. Eisenhower had a pretty good clue about it, and Eisenhower told him that he was being block control over these projects. So these covert programs have been off the leash, illegal black government system that I think is mostly corporate. So if you're asking me where the center of power on this is, everyone in Congress and the National Security Council and the president wouldn't add up to anything, a hill of beans, compared to what Lockheed Skunk Works, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, and some of these other contractors, but who have highly compartmented operations dealing with this. I've been working with these folks for a while, providing them an unredacted version of the archive we just released, meaning unredacted, it has all the names. It has 760 some whistleblowers in it. Now, if you go to the archive, you'll see, I think we have 120 some whistleblowers and witnesses, name, rank, serial number, and their video testimony. Not one or two, not five. So what's in this archive, if the Congress held hearings starting next week from Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
These are the names, May 13, 2024?
Yeah, look at this. Yeah, it's 700 and some. But the first 100 and some are people we've already interviewed. We have their DD-214s, discharge forms. We have video, most of them on video testimony.
Are these all public?
It's all public. Anyone with a computer on planet Earth can see these.
Can they see the videos, or that's being released?
Both.
Is it already released?
Yes, sir.
So far, when I asked you, Barry Goldwater, he's there, but he's not as Bobby Ray Inman. Okay, so Bobby Ray Inman has more influence than he does.
Oh, way more.
Then I went to President Clinton, and you said, no, George H.W. Bush Sr. has more influence than he does. Then I asked you about Kissinger. No, then you said Dick Cheney was more powerful than Sr. Okay. Then I asked you Kissinger. You said, no, Kissinger was more in that community of that influence.
And very global with it.
For sure. I mean, yeah, and he had a very interesting reputation. Yep. Fascinating guy to study, by the way. Some of the things he said. Yeah. The illegal, we can do fast. The unconstitutional takes a while. It's something like that.
He did. It's actually in our archive, that quote. Yeah. He said, the illegal we can do immediately.
Yeah, no problem.
Unconstitutional
takes a while.
Takes a little longer.
Check it. On this episode of Impact Theory, Tom Billy chops it up with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., diving into some serious issues America is facing. RFK Jr. from the legendary Kennedy family is running as an independent in the 2024 presidential race. They talk about everything from the urgent need for strong border security and fair immigration processes to cutting the military budget and focusing on economic strength. They also dig into government surveillance, protecting whistleblowers, and using tech like AI and blockchain to boost the economy and trust in the government. Bobby doesn't hold back on topics like COVID, vaccine efficacy, and the importance of open debates. He calls out Biden's border policies, the victimization of immigrants by cartels, and the economic threats of printing money and inflation. They discuss embracing blockchain and cryptocurrency to save the dollar and create wealth, the decline in American values, and the spread of government propaganda. This episode is packed with insights and ideas to tackle America's challenges head on. For the full context of this episode, click the link in the description below.
What the quality that's kind of got me where I am today, I like to think that I have a rational mind and that I have a lot of detachment. I'm not susceptible to passion or prejudice, that I try to look at problems and understand kind of the most logical way of looking at them, and then be always willing to change your mind about things if the data tells you otherwise. But then I also have kind of an imperviousness to pressure. If I believe something is right, I'll stick with it, and I'm not going to change my mind based upon kind of social punishment. Defamations that are applied to me, or marginalization, or any of those. But I will change my mind always if somebody confronts me with facts that are contrary to my worldview.
Because the other two candidates are all about appealing to the emotion.
I think that my sort of capacity to not get swept away by emotions or by ambition, I think it's a quality that has made me suitable for this time. I think we need somebody right now. I mean, one of the big problems that we have, that's just a systemic problem, is this divisiveness and the polarization. And we've always had polarization in our country, but it's aggravated by two things. One is the stratification of our society. We were the biggest middle-class country in the world, and we had the best social mobility when I was a kid. It was, if you were poor in America, you were more likely to make it into the next echelon or the upper classes than any other Western country, any country in the world. America was an extremely mobile society. If you started out poor, you can make it anywhere. We're seeing the destruction of the middle class. When I was a boy, America had a middle class, and that's why our democracy worked. Right? We had the middle class was the greatest economic engine ever devised, and it had given us all this wealth. We owned, when my uncle was president, half the wealth on the face of the earth. And you had, all the Americans were in houses, and we had this just explosion of middle class, and that stabilized the country. When a country loses its middle class, and you have these big gaps in wealth gaps where you have an oligarchy above, which is what we have now, and widespread poverty below, that's a configuration that is too unstable to sustainably support a democracy, because you end up getting two political parties, and one of those parties is representing the interests of the upper class, keeping their wealth and getting richer. And that's not a good vessel for populism. So they're not telling people that that's what they're up to, but they're using other techniques of propaganda, of lying, of fixing votes or whatever to make sure that people vote division, of pointing out scapegoats. And
are you talking about the right or the left right now?
It doesn't matter. If you're in a stratified society, whether it's a communist or whatever it is, where there's widespread poverty below and where there's great wealth above, one of the parties, its function is going to be protecting the assets and the perquisites and the privileges of the upper class. Yep. And then you'll have another party or a lot of parties that are trying to, that are representing poorer people. Usually the upper class gets the military and a lot of the institutions on its side, the press, et cetera, and it can manipulate a lot of levers, and it has to kind of be dishonest about what its objective is. So you get people, widespread feeling that people have been fooled, and you get these divisions, and that's happening in our country right now. So the polarization is partially a function of the economic stratification, but it's amplified today by social media because the algorithms, these algorithms, which are self-learning algorithms, and the engineers who design those algorithms really don't even understand in many cases how they work anymore because they're learning themselves. And what they learned is the objective of the algorithm is to keep eyeballs on the site for as long as possible because that's how revenues are generated by that social media. It turns out that people like to read things that they already believe in. So if you're a Republican and Democrat, you're living next door to each other, and you ask the same question of Google, you may get two different answers because the algorithm is steering to you information that fortifies your worldview, your existing worldview.
As the rich get richer, and there's a bigger divide between the haves and the have-nots, you're headed towards violence, quite frankly, from a historical perspective.
A bureaucracy that is corrupt is twisting science and is twisting facts and distorting facts. And that I feel like I have a clear view of I have a rational mind, so I'm looking at truth and I'm seeing how it's being deliberately and systematically distorted by powerful entities, whether it's the press, and that our country really is no longer living up to its ideals. I mean, we've been promoting regime change abroad and undemocratic forces and suppressing democracy abroad, and the same thing at the same time has been happening here at home. We've really lost a lot of the traditional indicia of democracy. Sure, we have elections still. Russia has elections. Iran has elections. China has elections. And, you look at our country and say, are we really a democracy anymore? Or are we really an oligarchy or even a plutocracy or a corporate kleptocracy where, the wealth and corporations really have the power to dictate policy, and that, regular Americans have almost no say in the political process. And also, we have a government now that's doing things that the American, Constitution that are abhorrent to our Constitution. It's doing censorship, it's doing surveillance, it's doing compliance exercises that are very, very anti-democratic. Well, of course, I'd like to be on the debate stage. The debating commission, if the traditional commission that's been used for the past 30 years was running the debate, I believe I'd be on the debate stage. Both the Biden and Trump campaign have said that they're not going to use the presidential debating commission, and they made a side deal with CNN. We think the side deal is illegal, and we've asked the FEC to take action, and we've also filed our own lawsuit against it. FEC rules, if you don't have neutral pre-existing criteria for determining who will be on the debate stage, and you just choose the two people that you want to debate and exclude everybody else, it's an illegal campaign contribution. And it's the same thing, essentially, that got Michael Cohen locked in jail. In 2001, almost every Democrat believed that the election was fixed. In 2016, people believed that Bernie Sanders that the election was fixed against them. And in 2020, Hillary Clinton publicly says that election was stolen from her. We should fix the electoral system in this country so nobody believes that at all. We put a man on the moon. We have ATMs on every block and, in every city in this country, and they never make mistakes. We have they never give you too much money, right? We can make a machine that can count. Las Vegas proves that. There's the slot machines never pay you too much. And then you can have a paper ballot so that if people have doubts about the machines, because machines can get hacked, you ought to be able to do a hand count, even a very, very low threshold. Within 5 years, 50 cents out of every dollar we collect in taxes is going to go to servicing the debt. In 10 years, 100%. This is existential.
Literally.
And we're past the point where we can cut our way out of it. What we need to do is we need to grow our way out of it. We need to grow our economy so that the debt gets proportionally smaller. And so we need to do cuts enough to balance the budget. But then we need to take that money and invest it in things that are going to grow our economy. our military budget right now, it's not about self-defense. It's not about defending the homeland. It's about dominating the globe. We have 800 bases abroad. The Russians have 1.5. The Chinese have 1. And these expenditures are about domination, about creating a hegemon and the illusion that we are the only power in the world. And, and it's not working anymore. When we apply sanctions, people laugh at us. The Russians, because of our sanctions, have the strongest economy that they've ever had. They're immune to sanctions now. Putin's more popular than he was when we started attacking. When we attack a country, they get stronger. It's been catastrophic for our country. Fiat currency is immoral. It's theft, and it is tyrannical. It's anti-democratic. It is oligarchical. It's warmongering. You can make the case that it is evil. Bitcoin, particularly, I think, is an important off-ramp, so that we need to encourage it, make it more transactional. There's the press, which has been utterly compromised, and it's been compromised for a couple of reasons. The revival of Operation Mockingbird, which is now very, very well documented. How much of the press is now controlled by the CIA and the NSA and the intelligence establishment, and common journals like Daily Beast, Rolling Stone, which used to be a counterculture journal and is now right out of the intelligence community. And if you look, they're all pro-Ukraine, pro-vaccine, pro all the things that the intelligence community, pro-U.S. expansion abroad, all of the, you can kind of look and see where they stand on the issue. National Geographic, the Scientific American, all of these apparent bullhorns for the intelligence agencies. You have that, and then there's something more going on, which is just this, this merger, this corrupt merger of state and corporate power, which has also subsumed the press. What we saw during COVID, where journalism really became degraded. Journalism has always played a critical role in democracy. There's the fourth estate. There's 3 branches of government, but the fourth, there's supposed to be the guardian of democracy, is the free press. And the press is supposed to maintain a fierce skepticism toward government pronouncements and government authority. That is the role of the press in a democracy. And during COVID, we saw the opposite. Instead of speaking truth to power, they became stenographers for government propaganda. They became active propagandists, marginalizing, vilifying, gaslighting dissenters, destroying reputations of anybody who, burning. Heretics could not be interviewed. They had to be burned at the stake and made examples of. And you saw these incredibly important scientists being fired, losing their jobs.
On Steve-O's Wild Ride, Dr. Drew stops by to drop some good news and bad news. They chop it up about everything from health updates to wild stories, keeping it real and raw. Doctor, Drew spills the tea on what's popping in the medical world and gives Steve-O some straight talk. For the full scoop, hit the link in the description below.
Is Ozempic a supplement?
No, it's a medication. I worry about it. I worry like crazy about it. Whenever people have lost the ability to understand that there's a risk reward with every medical intervention. They've just lost it. Okay. Are you diabetic? Yeah. So that's who it's meant for. And it's worth the risk in that case. It's worth the risk. For you or me, not worth the risk.
Is it true people getting Ozempic jaw? Have you seen that meme?
They get Ozempic
around?
face, and they also, I've seen bowel obstructions. I've seen people die from it. I've seen a gastroparesis. I'm not saying shit happens. It's worth the risk if you have metabolically significant weight loss, that you need to attend to, and especially blood sugar. It works. It works like an MFer. And then this widespread use, you're going to start to see real problems. It's time for us really to get serious about diet and exercise, as a country.
And it's been time.
Time for quite a while. But if you can if you have a significant amount of weight to lose, let's use the Ozempic. I'm fine with that, and then let's focus on the real stuff. And nicotine, it's a great weight loss adjunct. It's good for alertness. It may have some immunity. Nicotine has got some utility to it.
About
endorsement.
Zyn, because this Zyn thing
is rough, man. I've tried that, and
I
got headaches and wanted to throw up and stuff.
Why on earth would you try Zyn?
Because if I remember right, Bert Kreischer had it, wanted me to try it. I think something like that. I think that's right.
Andrew Huberman was talking about it, how it has like a nootropic effect, and it's good for
nicotine is not It's not a bad molecule. It has beneficial effects. We don't know in the developing brain. And one thing I know for sure, if you get addicted, if you get dependent on nicotine early, you're going to be on replacement your whole life.
Well, yeah, because in the 1980s, when it was determined as fact that cigarettes killed
finally
you, then
they started buying food companies.
Yeah, the tobacco companies.
And they took the same guys, same playbook, same lobbyist, same scientist, and brought them over to food. And not only that, the way they're designing it now is explicitly to addict us and to make us eat more. And I was talking to a food expert named Kaylee Means. He was talking about, he was a lobbyist, a food lobbyist one time. He was just telling me the stories. I could not believe it.
Right.
And I was saying, like, how come when I go to France, I can eat bread all day and I don't gain weight? He goes, that's completely, like you said, it's a completely different kind of wheat, completely different preservative. Everything's different. Nothing.
Right.
Check it. On Candace Owens' latest, she breaks down the wild news about Julian Assange getting freed on a U.S. plea deal. She digs into what this means for Assange, the legal drama behind it, and the big impact on free speech and journalism. It's a deep convo with all the twists and turns you got to hear. For the full context of this episode, click the link in the description below.
In places like New York and California, you can basically, and not basically, literally, shoot someone in broad daylight and expect to make bail and walk free the next day. I mean, the U.S. government has very much signaled to us that criminality is okay. They want more criminality in the streets. So what would you actually have to do to earn their real ire? Well, you'd have to expose the government. You'd have to show that the criminals are in fact in charge, that they are running the government. And that's exactly what Julian Assange did with WikiLeaks. You remember hearing about WikiLeaks and the whole mainstream media told you that it was bad and Julian Assange was bad and not to listen to anything that was coming out of WikiLeaks. Yeah, well, we don't have enough time to unpack everything that WikiLeaks did uncover. If I had to put it into just one sentence, what did Julian Assange accomplish as the founder and the editor of WikiLeaks? Julian Assange exposed the military-industrial complex.
Because the goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security elite. That is the goal. I.e., the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful war.
Telling us right to our faces, listen, they want to have never-ending wars, and what they're doing is they are laundering money. So Ukraine, Israel, Afghanistan, they're constantly telling us that there is some new cause. Your tax dollars, we're going to send them overseas, and then the Pentagon's going to go, whoopsies, we don't know where all the money went. That money laundering, it published a trove of documents, presidents, communications, files, emails that were going back and forth. And they also published videos, things that were encrypted. They unencrypted them and gave them to the public. They showed us a helicopter attack that was from 2010. It was a U.S. military helicopter showing the killing of civilians in Baghdad, Iraq. And a voice on the transmission urged the pilots to light them all up. These poor civilians on the street who were being fired at from the helicopter were asking for help. And a van arrives on the scene to pick up the wounded. And then the van was also fired upon. It also published hundreds of thousands of documents, how the U.S. military had killed hundreds of civilians in unreported incidents. We are recognizing that a lot of what he was trying to reveal to the public, and many of us were not awake. The goal, of course, is never-ending war, and we are the people that are funding it. And why are we not outraged? Well, we're either too drugged. I think that's a piece of it, big pharma and what it's doing to our minds, or we're too dumb because of big education, sending kids to school to get degrees in gender studies, getting people to focus on the social issues like racism, CRT. The last component is we're too brainwashed or too scared to say anything if we're not brainwashed. People believing what the media is saying and other people who know that the media is lying, but they're scared to say anything because, well, look at what they did to Julian Assange.
Check it. On Timcast, Tim Pool and Steven Crowder are going in hard, slamming CNN for trying to censor the presidential debate to help the Democrats. They call out the media's shady moves and break down how it's all about control and narrative. It's a no-holds-barred convo you don't want to miss. For the full context of this episode, click the link in the description below.
you can't lock down the former president and the current president debating the future of this country. And so they said, we're going to send you the email. You can reach out to them. Following that call, I sent an email to CNN saying, Google reached out, asked me to contact you guys. I said, we are a live show. We're 8 to 10. We're going to be providing commentary on the debate. Let me know if there's anything you're considering or what you need. And the response I got back was, we are only allowing certain digital publications to use the CNN YouTube feed and not allowing YouTubers to rebroadcast. And so I immediately contacted YouTube again to let them know, hey, they're basically saying no. It's not about restrictions. It's we are not going to let you. And I pointed this out to YouTube. I said, when we streamed with commentary and fact checking the Republican debate, Fox News had done a similar thing where they threatened to take down various shows, and they did, but only after the live stream.
Right.
We challenged their claim and they dropped it. There were many other liberals who challenged the claim, and Fox dropped it because they're not going to win that.
Right.
And so I asked YouTube, and this is a second call I'm on with them now. However, considering CNN appears to be very proactive on this, if they file a copyright claim against us while we are live and fair use, YouTube will take down our live show. And it's different from we did the show and we challenge this, because YouTube defaults to, okay, it's a civil dispute, take it outside of YouTube.
Right.
But if we're live and you shut us down, there is no go back.
No.
And this is interesting. YouTube said they may actually, they said, let us, we're going to check on this. You're right. We may actually defer and allow the streams to continue until after they're done.
This is outrageous. It is a total violation of any of the norms and the spirits around presidential debates.
Yeah, that's right.
And if it was it'd be one thing if they said, no, it's all going to be on CNN.
Yeah, that's
but you're
right.
allowing freaking Fox News and everybody else to play this, but not us and Tim Pool show, who also reached out to CNN and got a similar response. It's total bullshit. It's an attack basically on their nascent competitors.
It is an attack on independent media. There's no other way to read it, because like you said, listen, this is part of the fallout from them going away from the Presidential Debate Commission. Now that it's like this just private agreement between the parties, they decided they could do whatever they want. And what they wanted was to allow their direct competitors in cable news to be able to stream the debate, but not us and not any other YouTube creator. So it is outrageous. It does feel like a direct attack, but that's the reason why we will be unable to stream the actual debate on our channel, although every mainstream outlet will have access to it.
That is just a stab in the front. It's like, you're going to give it to C-SPAN, you're going to give it to Fox News, ABC News, by the way, those are your actual competitors. Those are the people you're competing against for ad dollars. This is just a screw you. They're doing it because they can. And so, look, it's outrageous.
On the PBD podcast, they're breaking down all the wild news. Julian Assange is about to plead guilty for his freedom, and RFK Jr. is missing from the debate stage. They're also calling out California schools for pushing sex ed over reading skills, and Andrew Cuomo is actually defending Trump in his civil fraud case. Plus, they touch on everything from the death of Hooters to Louisiana's 10 Commandments mandate, fake job gains in California, Stephen A. Smith's worth at ESPN, and the debate over America's drinking habits. For the full context of this episode, click the link in the description below.
California will teach kids anything except how to read. This is a Wall Street Journal story. California legislature, under pressure from teachers' unions, recently killed a bill mandating the teaching of phonics. Despite strong support from the PTA and NAACP, research since the 50s support phonics as the best method for teaching children how to read. Instead, California schools have adopted pseudoscientific theories about early literacy, leaving millions of children struggling to read. California imposes expensive top-down mandates in other areas, such as a 746-page sex education framework and a mandated ethnic studies curriculum rooted in 1960s activism. These curriculums aim to liberate students from oppressive forces like capitalism and patriarchy. The state's new mathematics framework initially included topics like whiteness and social justice, and now promotes discovery learning in an effective teaching method. The attacks, and anyways, I can go on and on.
The purpose of the sex manual is to, on the Marxist side, is to undermine the family. So the family is undermined, because what happens if you have strong families with people that are educated and good in math? Self-sufficiency, think for themselves, challenge the ideas of the government. All of those, the Marxist theories and the Marxist structure wants to undermine, every one of them.
President Biden wins the debate coin toss, chooses right side of the podium podium giving Trump the last word is what he's given. Why he did that? Who knows? There could be many reasons. Maybe it's because he wants to rattle Trump to get him upset. So he starts off with the first comment, then Trump gets upset, and the more upset Trump gets, the better of a look it is for him. Strict adherence to several controversial rules predetermined by CNN, agreed to by both candidates. This is what they both agreed to. Only 2 commercial breaks during the 90-minute debate. Campaign staff will not be able to interact with their candidate during the break. No opening statements, 2-minute answer shot clock, 1 minute for rebuttals. Mics will be muted, just like they were muted in the scene.
So it takes someone 5 minutes to Google Jake Tapper, Donald Trump, to see that Jake Tapper has consistently
we're going to stop this interview if you're going to keep
President
attacking my
Trump
colleagues. Ma'am, I'm going to stop this interview if you continue to attack my colleagues. I would like to talk about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, who you work for.
Yes.
If you are here to speak on his behalf, I am willing to have this conversation.
I am stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past.
Okay.
Now,
I'm sorry, guys. We're going to come back out to the panel. Caroline, thank you very much for your time. You are welcome to come back.
Well, first of all, it's...
There you go. It's kind of what it's going to look like when they decide to mute President Trump.
Why would you agree to have a guy? Jake Tapper is one of the most Trump-hating guys on the planet. This is Jake Tapper just, over the years.
The dehumanizing rhetoric of Adolf Hitler is once again alive and well on a national political stage. This time, of course, in the United States. Donald Trump, a couple times over the weekend, referred to immigrants from South America, Africa, and Asia. He did not mention Europe. South America, Africa, and Asia as, quote, poisoning the blood of our country, which it's not hyperbole. That does very directly echo Adolf Hitler's language before World War II. If you were to open up a copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf, you would find the Nazi leader describing the mixing of non-Germans with Germans as poisoning. There's really no other way to say it. Donald Trump's language mirrors this directly.
It's Trump derangement syndrome. They didn't think he was going to take the debate. He's saying, I'll take it no matter what. And I'll tell you why strategically it's going to work out. Every time they try to use these techniques and judicial activism to take out his legs, to knock him down, what happens? The dust clears and the polls move. This is not going to go well for them. If a fair-minded person is sitting there, a moderate watching, and sees manipulation, him being shut down or treated unfairly, then the debate's over. It doesn't matter what you analyze.
Clip with Andrew Cuomo and Bill Maher, they're going back and forth, and Andrew Cuomo talks about one of the biggest mistakes they made in New York with the hush money. Watch this.
The trial in New York, the one he got convicted for, was the greatest fundraising bonanza ever. He was lagging behind Biden, and now he's pulled quite a bit ahead. That trial was the greatest reason people had to send their checks for $5, $10, $25, whatever dollars to Donald Trump. So I was always with you on the one in New York, the hush money trial. I don't think they should have brought that one. It was just always going to look like a sex case, and people were always just going to look at it that way. So anyway.
That case, the Attorney General's case in New York, frankly, should have never been brought. And if his name was not Donald Trump, and if he wasn't running for president, I'm the former AG in New York, I'm telling you that case would have never been brought. And that's what is offensive to people. And it should be, because if there's anything left, it's belief in the justice system.
That is why I don't believe the convicted felon thing every time Biden says on June 27th is going to work. I actually think it's going to backfire on them. I'm telling you, I want Biden to say all that stuff. I want Biden to say, look at you, bankruptcy this, convicted felon that. I want him to say that. You know how much ammunition Trump has to come back to that? Do you know if there's anybody you want to debate that you have public dirt on that you can go up against? There isn't anybody easier to go up against ever, maybe, than Joe Biden. Maybe there's only one other person ahead of him. Maybe only one other person. That's Hillary Clinton.
I have a lot of respect for Andrew Cuomo in that interview. A lot of respect. He pointed out that he was a former AG. So he wasn't just speculating. This man had sat in the chair. He was the AG. And he said, look, if his name wasn't Donald Trump and he wasn't running for office, and therefore this was an opposition tactic, this wouldn't have been brought and never should have been brought.
California reveals all job gains in 2023 were fake. There's no way California would ever fake numbers like that. A report from California Legislative Analyst Office, LAO, disclosed that all reported jobs gains in California for 2023 were inaccurate, revealing a job loss of 32,000 from September to December, contrary to prior reports showing a solid increase of 117,000 jobs. The LAO confirmed that based on the most recent release of the early benchmarks, payroll jobs declined by 32,000. That's the difference of 150,000 jobs. If you do the math, the LAO report, newest early jobs revision, shows no new net job growth during 2023, indicated that with the fourth quarter revision, calendar year 2023 saw essentially no net job growth. This significant revision contrasts sharply with the preliminary monthly report, which had shown substantially job growth. The Bureau of Labor Statistics revised state employment figures annually through benchmark revisions, while quarterly revisions by Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia offer more frequent updates.
Ladies and gentlemen, whenever you see the initial headline on jobs reports, just wait 3 weeks for the revision. Did you see how many times the word revision was used in what Pat just read? And that's not people accusing them. This is BLS, your Bureau of Labor Statistics. It comes out about 4 weeks after the jobs report. We have a revision on that number. We have a revision on that number. It's politicized. They put out, because they're influenced by the current presidential administration, to put out a certain job number. Then everybody touts it, everybody tweets about it, and they think that the voters go to sleep and they go on to other things. Well, guess what? Then they come out 4 weeks later and they go, here's a revision. Now, California is getting ahead because BLS, that's the nation, that's Washington, revises the state employment figures annually, meaning they go and they audit, like the IRS, they audit those and they update them. And the California LAO, Legislative Analyst Office, is hated by the governor's office in California. It's hated because they tend to be more nonpartisan, and so they went out and issued their revision before they could be corrected by the federal government. And when they put the revisions in place, 3 minus 2 equals 1 minus 1 equals 0. Yeah, we really didn't have jobs there. And worse, by the way, when you peel back the onion one more, PBD, full-time jobs were lost in significant quantities, and the net replacement was part-time jobs. So even though they went to net zero, underneath it, there is a huge shift of loss of full-time jobs being replaced by little part-time jobs. This shows just how bad it is, and that the migration out of California, businesses cutting payrolls in California, all those restaurant chains and everything that were closing in Oakland, the math is coming down. Gavin Newsom gets a 0 on this test.
Check it. On the Dan Bongino Show, it's all about the Trump-Biden debate, and Bongino calls it an absolute annihilation. He breaks down how Trump came through strong, taking shots and leaving Biden in the dust. For the full context of this episode, click the link in the description below.
Absolute, total, complete annihilation last night. Complete decimation, evisceration. What happened to the Democrats last night? The single worst debate performance in American history. The Supreme Court, but 2 huge decisions. Chevron deference. In other words, that a bunch of bureaucrats can decide your life rather than legislators we can vote for. That's gone. Now lawmakers are going to have to do what? Make laws? They can't just leave it up to the administrative state. Second, January 6th, they were all of the January 6th prisoners, most of them were charged with this 1512 obstruction thing. They made it up. It was an Enron law. It had nothing to do with January 6th. Where's that? Anybody know? That's gone too. I woke up thinking, did that just happen last night? Was it really as bad as I thought? And the answer, folks in the chat, is yes, sir. Matter of fact, it was worse than you thought. The single worst debate performance you have ever seen in your entire life. Ladies and gentlemen, when you lose CNN, Chuck Todd, the Young Turds, and everyone else, it is over. That's the good news. The bad news is we needed a push. What we got, a push, meaning we had to have our moment. We wanted them to have our moment. There's a small problem. Yes, we can all kind of celebrate the victory, the Democrats, and it does kind of feel good to watch this narcissistic, kid-sniffing, loser, woman-groping, daughter-showering zero suffer after all the suffering he's put on us. My fear now is that the likelihood of Biden not being the candidate now is about 51%. He looked like he was dead, folks. Why was he doing this? It's amazing how he caught the cold in the middle of the debate when shit started going bad. The snapshots, forget what he said. We're not even at that yet. Campaigns are two things, brothers and sisters. They are not white papers. They're not editorials. Forget the polls. Campaigns are pictures and sound bites. That's all people remember. The rules last night that were slanted to help Joe Biden. Tell me can you put the chat up on the screen? Folks in the chat, do you agree with me or not? I think the rules, in the most ironic political twist of all time, actually helped Donald Trump. I do. The split screen of their two faces, Donald Trump sitting there, serious, presidential, chest out. What's Biden sitting there? Looks like he's dying. The bad news with this is, ladies and gentlemen, Operation Dump Joe Biden. And what I warned you about 3 months ago, I said to you, the Democrats picked this debate time for Biden for a reason. What? You guys remember? Because if he sucked, it gives them time to plan. I told you the Democrats were setting him up. He wanted a debate because he's a cocky, narcissistic, sociopathic loser, Joe Biden. That's who he is. The Democrats said, fine, this is what happened. I told you. You want a debate? You're going to do it early. And behind the scenes, they're saying, get him in there early because when he messes this up, we have time to get him out. You know who's stopping him? Jill. Jill Biden won't let him out. Biden woke up today and still is not going to leave. Matter of fact, The Hill is reporting it right now. He wants to do a second debate. Stop talking about Joe Biden like he's a normal person. You're a normal person. You have kids, you have a dog, you have a fence, you got a house, you got a car. You're not crazy like this grifting loser. Stop looking at him like he's normal. You're like, oh, a normal person would leave. Great. He's not normal. And either is his family. He is not going to drop out until what I've told you for a year now. When the donors force him out, and Obama, then he'll leave. That's the only way. Do not assume that this guy is going to drop out. Joe Biden is in North Carolina today. He's supposed to be giving some kind of public comments. I want you to listen if he opens the door. If he opens the door, you'll hear something like, well, last night could have gone better. Some decisions have to be, or something. You hear anything like that, which I doubt. If you do, he's gone. He's gone. He's not going to make the decision overnight. If you don't, and he's resolute, I can tell you right now, they're stuck with this guy. This is going to be the soundbite of the night. This was just the nail in the coffin for this guy. I really don't know what he said. He didn't either. Check this out.
What's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump? I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look,
where Biden says he beat Medicare, no one even knows what it means, but listen to the Trump response. Watch the contrast. It's important.
We'll make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump? Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
What the hell was this last night? Joe Biden's like, women are being raped by their brothers and sisters and spouses. Listen, rape's a serious thing. I'm sure it does happen tragically. Because what is he even getting at? We're talking about the rape of American citizens by illegals who are not supposed to be here. He's talking about sisters raping people. What the hell what was he even talking about?
Women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border.
Folks, last night, something you also know about Joe Biden, that the left is just figuring out. Oh yeah, is that he is a sociopathic liar. What are the most damaging political narratives in the world? Homework time, man. Ones that change your pre-existing notion of who someone is. The only reason Joe Biden's even at 30% approval is because about 20% of the country sees him as a useful idiot, but the other 15 see him as this avuncular, grandfatherly, caring guy who's honest. He's a freaking liar. And last night, he was exposed so badly, even CNN had to do a fact check on him. Do you know how bad you have to lie for Daniel Dale from CNN to have to just steal your lunch money? He was endorsed by the Border Patrol? Where did that come from? He just totally made that up.
Increase the number of asylum officers significantly. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed me, endorsed my position.
Just be honest. The average tax rate of the top 1% is 25.9%. Stop bullshitting people. The top 0.1%, it's the same rate, 25.7, effectively the same rate. Just stop lying. Who pays most of the taxes? Look, you interested in numbers or bullshit? You want to tax the rich more? Fine. Nothing he tells you is true. How bad does it have to be when this happens on CNN? Daniel Dale, who is one of the most biased, quote, fact checkers, i.e. opinion journalists, in the business. They had to run this segment after the show where they just, again, eviscerate this guy's credibility.
He's the only president in a while who didn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world. Troops have, of course, died on his watch. He said he's put in a $15 per shot cap on insulin and Medicare. It's a $35 a month cap. He said it's a $200 cap on overall drug spending in Medicare. It's $2,000 a year. He said the border now has fewer crossings than when Trump was in office. That's generally not true. He said, or at least strongly suggested, unemployment was at 15% when he took office. It was actually 6.4. He said Trump wants to get rid of Social Security. Trump doesn't. He said billionaires pay 8.2% in taxes. It's much higher. He said Trump told Americans to inject bleach amid COVID. We know Trump made foolish comments about scientists studying disinfectant injection, but didn't frame it as advice to people. And Biden said the Border Patrol endorsed him. No, its union supported the border bill he supported, never endorsed him himself.